Hey gents, Joe here. If you want to subscribe, it's iPilot. Well, I just have a little tips and trick video here. If you're like me, you like to keep your wires nice and neat. You know, you don't want them flopping around inside your bird. You know, when you're at the field, take your canopy off. You don't like the wires all just haphazardly laying around under your canopy. Not to mention, if you're like me, you do more sport flying, you don't want them, you know, I do like big air and loops and all that kind of stuff, but you don't want your wires flopping around. Or if you're a more aggressive flyer, you know, with the 3D, you don't want them slapping around inside and maybe unplug on you. So I just have a little tips and tricks on how to keep that neat. I'll bring the camera in and show you what I'm talking about. What I did to my T-Rex 700 DFC speed fuselage, what I did to it while I was doing the conversion. I'll bring the camera in so we can take a look. Okay, gents. So here we see I have my ESC set up front. You know, I see a lot of fellas do that. It's not a big deal. But the thing is, the way I have my wires, I have my Y connected to my ESC, my Y connector. And so you see, without the batteries, it just kind of flops around. You know, so when you're at the field, if it's not hooked up, it's going to look like that. And if you're like me, I can't have this. That just looks a little bit ridiculous, you know. So what I did was I made these clips. So without the batteries in, you know, I just, if it's in between flights, what I do is just hook that there on one side, and on this side I do the same thing. Hook this here. So that way it keeps the wires out of the way. They're not so, you know, doesn't look so sloppy flopping around. And I'll show you what it's like with the batteries in. Okay, so we have the batteries in. Yeah, see my red U sticker? That means I have to charge that up. Don't want to mistake it for a charge one and throw it in a helicopter. But anyway, batteries in. So we'll hook the batteries up. All right, so we have the batteries hooked up, and so see what it looks like. Sloppy McNasty. So what you could do is, here, let me turn the bird around. We have the, okay, so now we have the bird turned around on the other side, and so even with the batteries hooked up, take the wire, throw it in the clip, or down here. That way she's not flipping around, the wires aren't flipping and flopping around under the canopy. I'll just put that in there, whatever. But at least now the wires are restrained. And on this side, you don't really need it in the clip when the battery's hooked up, because the battery itself keeps it in check. You know, well, at least this way it keeps the wires neat. You know, your canopy off, you don't have wires hanging all over the place, and I think that looks sloppy. You know, I mean, if you know, you know, I like to have my wires neat. You know, and I think that's a neat job right there. I mean, it's just my opinion, but I'll show you how to make those clips. Show you how I made them. And one more time, this is with the batteries in, and this is with the batteries out, and with the wires out of the clips. And here we go with the wires in the clips. You know, like I said, just keeps it neater. You know, at least that way it's not flipping and flopping around. It doesn't look so bad, you know, when it's just sitting there, as opposed to, you know, at least that way they're restrained. And let me show you how I made those. Okay, gents, so I got the helicopter out the way, and what we have here is just the casing for a power supply for a computer that I no longer needed. So I took a power supply out, but that's in another video. I'll show you what I did with it. But so that's the kind of metal you're dealing with. All right. And it's a metal that's hard enough to keep its shape, but soft enough where you can mold it or bend it into a shape and it'll hold that shape. So what I did, as you can see, is I cut out a piece. First of all, on the helicopter, which is right here, you want to measure or get a rough idea of how wide a piece you need. You know, just a rough idea. And then cut that out of here. And you're going to need this, you know, just to make it quick and neat. But just cut it out. And once you get the piece cut out, then you want to take this, if you have one, and sand the sides down so that they're not jagged. You see, I put some wear on this rascal. But anyway, then you want to take your vice grips here. Hold the end of them, hold the end of the piece of metal, so you can bend it into the shape that you need. And that's the shape that I wanted right there. And then once you get that shape, you can attach it to your helicopter once you get your shape. And I use these, put them in my Dremel tool, and drill 2 holes in the back. And assorted screws. I have assorted screws here, so I just found one, a screw that was small enough, made the appropriate size hole, drilled it, and then put the screws in, and then see if your tray can get in, your battery tray. If your tray can't get in, mark the back of the screws with a marker. Extract the screws, and when you have the screws in your hand and you see on the screw the marker, take your cutoff tool and grind down to all the marker is all gone. So grind the rest of the screw away. Then you can put glue on the back of this and then drive your screws back in and check to see if you have clearance again with your battery tray. Then once that's on, you take heat shrink, and then you slide the heat shrink over the metal, heat it up, obviously, and then trim it. You know, I think this is the piece I used. Then you heat it up, trim it, and you're left with this. Now, it does have a spring effect to it. You know, it's like I said, the metal's stiff enough where it keeps its shape. Now, I have this JB Weld here, and the reason I have that is, like I said, I like to keep everything neat. So on this side, I took the JB Weld and put a little coat over it. You know, put a little coat over it, and then so that way it molds into the frame itself. You know, it looks molded into the frame here. See? And like I said, it's pretty stiff. But yeah, the screws are underneath. Put the epoxy on it. The JB Weld doesn't have to be. I found that the quick setting epoxy is better. And I just colored it when I was done with a magic marker, you know, with a Sharpie or something. And that way it molds into the sides of the helicopter, into the frame of the helicopter. You know? And like I said, it's got tension on it. You know, you can make the tension as tight as you want, and that just involves bending this. And then it'll hold that shape because the metal is, like I said, it's tough enough where it holds the shape, but you know, it's malleable enough where you can bend it to where you need without breaking your fingertips off. And like I said, on this side, I did not put anything on that, at least not yet. I just want to see how it holds up. And then I'll go ahead and finish this side. But yeah, you know, I mean, this is for somebody who likes to, if you have nothing to do for a couple of hours, because that's all it takes. It's really quick. If you have nothing to do and you like wrenching on your bird, that'll do you. You know, I wish Align would make something like a slot here anyway where you can, where it's an optional piece if you want to just slide it in. I mean, this can be done on any helicopter actually. You know, if you have, you know, wires, if your ESC's up front and your wires are flopping all over the place, you don't want that. Then, you know, go right ahead and put them in, put it on. All right, gents, that's it. Hopefully that little tip will work for you also. If you have a different bird, like it's not, obviously it's not limited to an Align bird. If you have something different, if it has the space in it, maybe you can use that idea. If you're like me, you don't like your wires flipping and flopping around. I'm ready to fly it, but the weather's just not cooperating here. Either it's cold, I don't like flying in the cold, I hate it. Either it's cold, it's windy, or it's raining, or I'm working. When it's nice out, I'm working. So, anyway, that's it, gentlemen. If you want to subscribe, it's iPilot, and I'll see you. Peace and cheers.